It's the Tiger Sports Live Breakdown Podcast.
Well, with your host, Scott Barrett, and Brian Jiggs Babcock here for our fourth episode. I like these, Jiggs, because a lot of our fans kind of want a deeper working knowledge of the opponent ahead, but it's also fun after a few days to look back at what we just did. Mm-hmm. Getting a lot of good comments from people, between 500 and 600 viewers to this thing. Not too sophisticated, man. We're not a big production thing. It's just a couple dudes that played at Liberty Center. You graduated in 05. I graduated in 89, the 88 season. We've seen some good football around here over the years. You certainly, the older you get, the more you appreciate it. You appreciate the detail. Maybe you didn't appreciate it as much as a player, but as an adult, you're enjoying it, and it's hard not to enjoy what you're seeing now at Liberty Center. I mean, it's been a good ride here.
It sure has, man. These last few years have been really fun.
Amazing.
And it's not what I've said in the broadcast before. It's kind of an expectation now for Liberty folks,
standard.
But it's not guaranteed. I mean, we've had some years here where it's tough to sneak into the playoffs or, tough to kind of win 6 or 7. There's been some years like that. I played on a couple of them. You did as well. So it's been a pretty special thing to watch here the last couple of years.
Well, and transition from the great Rex Lindgren to Casey Moeller has been seamless. Casey had a couple years where, obviously the standard now are 14-0. I mean, he didn't have those early years, but you could just see it. I think with what youth football has put together with 200 kids a year and the great junior high retention, that's a story that needs to be told too. Our junior high programs
and the coaches,
that's it. Those guys. You got the continuity in the junior high coaches, with Whitmire and Miller. You get a couple of Millers, Skinny down at the 7th grade level, and Crozier. Those guys.
Yep. Jesse.
You're not losing guys. Jesse Miller is.
And these are good guys that can relate to players, make it fun.
They played here. They understand. Now Skinny, he was head coach Archibald, but the bottom line is the mission is they're winning a ton of games. I think Coach Whitmire has won 90% of his games. I always talk to Pastor Chuck about it.
He is the winningest.
I think he's lost 8 games in 13 or 14 years or 17. What are we doing? But wins are good, but that retention between 7th and 8th, and then 8th in high school has really contributed to the 73-man roster. Those junior high coaches are fabulous at retaining and teaching and giving kids the basics, and when they lose a game every now and then, it's a teaching opportunity. There's no fire, brimstone, Woody Hayes. They're like, okay, and they know the mission isn't to hang banners in junior high.
That's right.
The mission is to do exactly what we're doing. So when I use the word, I use the term corporate football with Coach Moeller, but I mean that in a sense that it is pre-K through varsity, and it's just all so well aligned, from the youth who's really focused on fundamentals, participation, fun, hear the stories, put the uniform on. We're not in leagues.
Get interested.
Just
keep them out.
Enjoy it.
That's right.
And they're doing that. You look at the kids that run on the field on some of those Friday nights, and Zeb Orr gets those guys organized, and Todd Spangler and Rex Miller. There's a ton of guys down there. It's awesome. So, here we are, 14-0. We're going to the state semifinal again, 3rd straight year. Piling up regional championships like nobody's business. Got our 10th, which ranks somewhere in the state of Ohio in the top 10. Amazing job. Wanted to look back at the Milan Edison game. We were there, and we were geared up for an epic war.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, man, you keep taking these steps. Oak Harbor was spectacular. Mm-hmm. Had some concerns about Liberty Benton, really did. Thought they could do some things. Okay. Went into Oak Harbor, they delivered. That was it. They kind of had us by the nape of the neck a few times. Right. Dropped here, dropped there, pick here, pick there. That one could have been a different story. Oak Harbor was ready to go. Then you get to Milan Edison, who's just as good, and all the numbers, and the win against Sandusky Perkins and Jiggs. Outside of that first drive, we absolutely dominated Milan Edison in a way that I was in shock.
Hey, correct.
And you look in the booth, and the captain's back there, the high school students back there, Diamond Dan. What is this? This is a whole level of domination I did not anticipate. I think Liberty Center gave up 154 yards in total last week, 80 in the first drive.
Wow.
The entire game got deleted Liberty deleted Milan Edison, for lack of a better word. What did you see last week?
Yeah, well, for one, I was really surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked prior in this podcast last week, and we were expecting Edison to absolutely deliver and make this a very tight game. We were talking maybe a field goal type of game, and we really thought that. I think what Liberty Center is starting to hit on is their offensive and defensive line are really starting to kind of gel, and they're hitting their peak at the right time.
Yeah.
The offensive line just, I mean, the amount of 3, 4, 5 yard gains, I mean, we were just, there really wasn't, other than Waylon's first touchdown, there really wasn't, and Gary, I guess, had a little bit of a long run, but there really wasn't that longer runs. It was just plodding down the field. And when you're a defense and you're going against an offense like that and you can't get a stop, you start looking around like, what are we going to do?
Who's going to stop him?
What are we going to do?
Look at the sidelines for the defensive coordinator. Do you have an answer for
you
this?
Got another guy? Can we get him right here? I need another guy right here to help me. And it wasn't happening. And that is what a good run offense does. That's what a good offensive line does. It just demoralizes you.
You know the metaphor that I would use, because I know this is the MMA thing. Like, you got a guy on the ground, and he's covering up, and the guy is just pounding, and and there's an elbow,
and
there's more pounding, and all you can do is just not get blasted in the face. That's what the 4-yard gain is.
Yeah.
He didn't get the kill shot, but I can't even return fire,
and I can't get out.
I can't get out. Well, he's on top of me. And then they stop the fight because someone taps out. There was no tapping out last week.
Right.
Liberty just kept pounding and it was something you said it that I thought about, like, what are we going to talk about this week? Hunter Spangler wearing number 42. Like, there's where our offense went. It went back to the future.
Yeah.
It didn't go, hey, we're going to get an extra wide receiver. We're going to put in another route tree for a slot. We're going to have, Garrison Cruz do something really cool. Our answer last week to Milan Edison was, yeah, I think we're going to put Hunter Spangler at 6'4", 270 in a running back, number, and put him on the end of the line and just basically like road grade even more than they'd done when they lined up him and Giesge and Xander Zeiter and White. What in the world are you looking at if you're Milan Edison's defensive line?
Well, it's the size. Liberty said we're just not used to seeing.
Right.
I mean, we're traditionally kind of a smaller. We got guards that are playing 150, 160 a lot of times. That's not this team. This team is bigger, and they are beefier, and they are pretty mean and pretty nasty.
Could you imagine the Sunday night meeting with all the coaches, because I was there for 17 years, and they're looking at it and going, what can we do this week? And Nick Miller holds his hand, hey, I got an idea. Let's put Hunter Spangler in a tight end number, and everybody's like, that's cool. Like, Hunter Spangler, let's drive people on the ground.
When is the last time we threw a tight end? Oh, it's been 4 weeks? Okay, let's try it.
So when you saw that, I got a text from some of the coaches, and I was lucky to coach most of them, and like the glee to talk about Hunter Spangler. And I say that not because Hunter's a great player, but that's where we're going with this thing. Yeah. We're going deeper.
Right.
You're going deeper into offensive line play, deeper into dominating the line of scrimmage, and they did it. We were on the field before the game, and Milan Edison, they look good. I mean, there's athletes there, and they got the Finney kid, and they got guys all over. They were good players, but the size, you just kind of knew Liberty kind of saw that on film too. It's hard to see it on film. You go on the field, and Liberty just really looked dominatingly on the size-wise against Milan Edison. That was exactly how it played out.
Yeah, well, on the defensive line, too. I mean, we saw Hunter and Xander flash. Kyler Kern played a good game. Deegan Schweigert was active. Kellen Weimer was active. So I think the line of scrimmage was absolutely won by Liberty Center. And when we can win the line of scrimmage, we are tough to stop.
Well, let's get into it. Milan. We beat Milan Edison, and we really got at him. Now we get Canfield South Range. To me, a little bit more like us, a team that's got tradition. I was reading Dave Rax. This is his second year. I think he's 26-2 or something. They won 13 in a row. They finished tied with Ironton, number 1 in the AP. It just doesn't get any better than this. And we can all remember what happened in Clyde 2 years ago. That was a bloodbath. They took us apart. But they had a lot of, they had quarterback, and they had a slot receiver, and they had another receiver, and they had and their offensive and defensive lines. I mean, that was a complete team, and they tore apart Ironton in the state championship. I mean, tore them apart.
Yep.
Tore us apart, 35. No, we couldn't breathe. And they went down and took Ironton apart. That was just such a great team. And Dave Yeagley retired after 28 seasons, and he was 248 and 75. We had a guy here that did that kind of similar to that, those numbers, and then hands it over to his defensive coordinator, Dave Rack. We had a guy do that here as well, Rex DeCasey, and Dave's done nothing but put up 26 wins. Rock, I should say, Dave Rock. That's how I think that's how they say it. He spent 6 years as a defensive coordinator. This is their fourth trip to the Final Four. They hammered us 35-0 and hammered Ironton in 22. They've won 3 straight Northeast 8 titles. The last 6 years, 90% winning percentage, 72-8. They play some football over there. That's a blue-collar, working-class group. They look a lot like us in the stands. They look a lot like us the way they play. They play hard. This team returns 10 seniors on offense, 11 seniors on defense, total of essentially, 21 seniors return, 6 starters on offense, 7 on defense. Just experience, tradition, and culture all over the field. And we'll dive deep into their offense, but this Canfield South Range team may not be the 22 team, but it is a damn good football team.
Yeah, it is. And I played that game back 2 years ago a little bit, and there's a lot of these seniors that were on that field. Right. They may not have been making big impacts, but they were playing. So that's a team that's been there. They've been through it. They've been to state championship. They've won it. Very experienced, as you said, and I think they kind of look like Oak Harbor to me.
Do.
They really do. I mean, they have very similarities. I think their weapons are similar, running back similar, quarterback pretty similar. So I think you'll see a lot of maybe not the same formations necessarily, but a lot of the same type of athletes that Oak Harbor had. They look similar to me on film.
One of the things that Casey and I talked about this morning, they're doing a lot of false king with guards.
They are.
They are sending guards
boom
other way and just taking backers and safeties and then just they create number advantages by Liberty Center has red linebackers and
yes.
for generations around here. The discipline we're going to have to show because Tristan Toy is their quarterback, and this is his second year as a starter. This guy's a complete kind of player. I mean, he's not as dominant maybe as the guy we saw 2 years ago, but he throws it well down the field. Yep. He really runs. He loves to get vertical in the running game. Yep. He's not one of these guys that's looking for boundaries and sidelines, and he is a big part of their offense.
Yes.
Their offensive line, I think that's where they lost a lot of players from last season, and they had to replace guys. But that's a lot of seniors, man. I mean, if you're replacing a really good offensive line from a year ago, and then you replace them with guys that have been around, it's just like the next guy, next man up. So I don't know that that's a deficit when you replace all these players with hungry, been in the program. Casey loves seniors too.
Yep.
Like he'd play a junior, senior all day long over sophomores and even a freshman. You got to be exceptional to be on the field for Casey, and I think it's the same thing here. Their roster isn't as big as ours, but the numbers are great. Milan Edison's numbers were great. Oak Harbor's numbers were great. We get this deep in the playoffs, you're seeing just a lot of dudes with a lot of experience. Talk about what you see in their offensive line and their offense you like, and I know you've seen it, you look back at it, but specifically what things you like in their offense.
Yeah, I think the quarterback makes them go.
Yep.
It all starts there. He's able to create, within the called run game and outside of that.
Right.
He does pass it very well. They don't really want to pass, though. I mean, they want to pound you. I mean, there's been some games this year where they've rushed for 400 yards, and they're just big play gashing people. So it starts with him. They will power run him right up the middle. They'll run him outside.
Yep.
They'll get him out of the pocket in the pass game. They have a weapon, number 11, a receiver that they really like to go to. He basically, I wouldn't say he's super speedy, runs great routes, and they have a great connection.
He's open.
He always finds him. And he can do some stuff after the catch. Gavin Nagy. I'm sorry, that's who that was?
Yeah, right.
The fullback, Eden Dominguez, he's a big kid. I mean, you got 6'3", 225 senior. He can break some tackles, and then he has some breakaway speed once he gets in the open. You mentioned they run a lot of those false keying guards where they pull two guards. They'll run Dominguez opposite.
Yes.
And they get a crack on that defensive end or that outside linebacker, and that's a very successful play for them.
The backside, guards and tackles, once they pull the guard, the front side or both guards, those tackles come down on the inside guy that's kind of like following that backside boom.
Yeah.
And then you got Dominguez on that backside, and there's not a lot of support there.
Yes.
So I think that they've been, and I think they do it a lot. I don't think it's a novelty thing.
No, Seminary, they did a lot against Seminary last week, and it was one of their most successful plays that they continue to run. But I think the quarterback is really the key. I mean, they'll lead up where he takes a snap. Dominguez is lead blocker. They'll get a wing up, pull a guard, where they'll basically bring three guys right up the middle, and they'll run him right up the middle, and he takes some shots. And he gets up. So he's not a huge kid. I think 5'11", 175, 185, but he's got some speed and he's got some shake to him, and he's a tough runner.
I think they look like Liberty Center a little bit too in the way. I mean, such a precision blocking, operation up front. I mean, Nick and Todd and Brett Howe and our offensive group. Brian Miller with tight ends, and those guys are precision blockers. They're not just trying to blow you up. They're not just trying to stand up and get in your way. I mean, we're getting to targets. We're blocking out of shoots. We're hitting them in the right angles. They're similar. Like these guys are precision blockers. They run like a 36. I've seen it on the scouting report. They call it a trap, but it almost looks like a power trap where they're kicking out, and that second backside backer's getting up and getting inside, and they got a lead back on the front. So, I mean, like it's a lot of dudes. They're piling up in a six, a little bit like what we do in our power games.
Yes.
And I'm like. And they're getting, like, you can throw a bunch of guys in a hole and get in the way. These guys aren't in the way. I mean, They are just precision taking guys out. And Seminary struggled with that 6'7", 5'6" power. I think they run that play as well as, and then all of a sudden you take it out, and this quarterback, who is, I think, a really good player, and this Tristan Toy can go pull it out and go the other way. They've just got a lot, and they block it so well, Brian.
Yeah, they do. And I think that's going to be a key is to stop their run game, because that's where they want to go. They want to run it. They can't pass it, but they want to run it. And we'll see. We talked about weather last week. I think the wind did play a factor in Edison.
It did.
They didn't really want to go to the air that much, and it's going to be 20 degrees, by kickoff time, and 15, 20-mile-an-hour wind. I mean, it's going to be nasty Friday night. So good luck trying to grab the football, throw it, and catch it in that weather. And then if you're a quarterback, you're going up the middle and you're taking some shots on your arm and your hand, and you're like, yeah, now I got to try to grip the football. So I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they went away from the pass more and just say, let's line it up and let's see what we can do here.
Well, I definitely feel like their offense, again, they're in shotgun. It's like a power, running game out of a shotgun. And I do like their backs. I like their wings. I think they're excellent blockers, and I just think the program, it parallels ours. I mean, it's a working class community in the rural east side of the state. Here we are in the west side of the state, working class farming community. Football matters there. I mean, culturally perfectly aligned. If and Tim Spieth back in the day when he was really at his peak was all about technical blocking at the offensive line. How many seconds does it take you to get to the trap holes? And, if no one's there to get to the second level, these guys are the same, cut from the same cloth. I think their offense is precision-based, and I don't know that any of them remind you of any rock star, superstar guys. They're not those guys. They're really dependent on excellent, efficient blocking up front, and they got just enough talent and just enough ability to really hurt you. Last week was a brawl with Poland Seminary.
Yeah, it was.
They were down 16-7 in the fourth quarter. This was coming off a battle they had with them earlier in the year. I think it was a 38-30 game that those two really got to it.
Yep.
But the rest of the season, Canfield kind of got after their opponents, and I don't see anybody that really showed other than Poland that really scared them in terms of they gave some points up. South Range will give points up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they're very dominant. They're not a dominant force like they were 2 years ago up front.
Right.
We are kind of dominant now, which is weird because Casey talks about the team without. that team had Bockelman as a junior, and they had Box, went to Finley as a senior. I mean, there was some dominant players there. I mean, but maybe there were stars, and maybe the group itself, when you would grade out the 22 offensive line group, which was really good, against this group, which may be kind of more no-name, although we know the names.
Yeah.
I think that the unit is collectively pretty good right now.
This offensive line is really, really
I said it might be as good as the 1980 team, and the 80 team had guys like Roger Weeks and Mark Mueller and Chris Strayer and Phil Kruger and Casey Van Order. This is a team in 80 that turned the whole thing around from 8 years of being dormant, and Meeker and this offensive line did it. I really felt like you watch the old 8mm, Meeker would show them to me and say, I want you to watch, Mr. Weeks here and Mr. Mueller here. And I'm like, ooh. And Mr. Schwartzlander ran it right up their back. It's like, ooh, like that was impressive. That's kind of what we look like, Brian.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, I keep going back to Carey 3 years ago when Carey had that big line, big running backs.
Road
and it was just
grade.
Like, I remember looking at that game like, what, kind of like what we do to people. What are we going to do here?
We didn't do anything. 31-7.
So that's kind of the feeling that I get with this offensive line. Like, I don't know who's going to stop our run game right now. I think the key to beating Liberty Center, you got to get up on us. You got to get a couple touchdown lead and make us chase. And I think that is the key because I don't see anybody completely stopping our run game right now.
I agree. So certainly the Canfield offense, again, complete unit, maybe not a bunch of stars, maybe the team without out some of the stars from the 22 team, but they were good last year too, Brian. This Canfield team's put together 72-8, 90% win percentage the last 3 years. I mean, what are we, or last 6 years, what are we talking about? It's dominant. Let's go on to their defense. They like to run a three-man front. They like to look odd, but the reports, and you watch, they'll get into an even. We've seen an extra number being brought up the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
So you get into this base defense. We got three guys down, a guy standing here, a guy standing there. Looks five-man, but two guys standing, so it's really a three.
Yep.
A three-man front because you've got to have athletes out there kind of like our guys. We got these outside linebackers that are, they're corner linebackers, just a dominant-looking group of athletes. You got to have a guy that can do all three: blitz, cover, and play the run. They have the same kind of look to them. Their linebacking group, just like last week, I thought was their strength. I think their linebackers are good, but they like to play 3-4. I think we'll see some five-man.
Yeah.
I think we'll see another guy walk up. I think they're going to – I mean, what are you going to do? You can't sit in a 3-4 and hope that they can stop off tackle, right?
Right.
I mean, again, we talk about our snipers, and that's what some of this stuff looks like too. It's all – just verbiage, but talk about what you're seeing and where Liberty can be effective against them with our run game.
Yeah, I think they'll probably go head up center most of the game. Yep. I think their strength is probably their two middle linebackers.
For sure.
Number 55, you're going to see him a lot. Luke Starkey, 6'1", 225 junior. He's a really good football player. I mean, he's in the backfield. They'll blitz him a lot.
6'1", 225. He was the defensive player of the year in the Northeast Inland Division. I mean, he is a player.
He's really good. So I think running inside might be tough at first. I think we might have to look to run outside, and we've done such a good job these last couple weeks on that jet motion run where you get two backs leading up, and that has been a very effective play. I would expect to see a lot of that. And the other thing with them is their safeties are flying. Tristan Toy, he'll play as safety. He's a lot of times making tackles in the backfield. So they're going to be flying downhill on our run game. And if you saw the Poland game, there's a couple missed tackles on their quarterback. He did a spin move, and boom, he was gone. Yep. So, yes, the safeties can play into the run game, but if you miss at that safety, there's no one left, and then you're off for the races. So I would expect – listen, you've watched Liberty last 2 weeks, and we've had 5 passes and 4 passes. So they're just naturally going to say, man up, and then everybody else right in here, and let's see if we can stop this thing.
I was talking to Case in our interview, and it's kind of almost like a running joke about when am I going to see the boot pass? There's no safety. There's no safety.
You're right. We have not seen a boot pass for a long time.
How can you question Casey Miller's play calling? Can't. And I don't know a dig-a-dong thing about offense. I'll tell you the same thing. But I mean, at some point as a coordinator, I've got I feel like he got 14 guys within 9 yards of the ball, and there's just no one back there, like
Right.
nobody. Like
Right.
we have Thomas Moeller, and he's doing his job.
Yes.
He's 12, 15 yards off the ball, 18 yards off the ball. But the teams we're playing now, Jigs, that
8
the
yards,
quarterbacks that are
8.
playing the safeties are just
Yeah.
coming downhill. They're not
No
even
reads.
looking, nothing.
No, they're not even reading guard. It's just snapping. They're just picking a hole and running. But that's exactly what they're going to do.
100%.
I mean, Tristan Toy, he made a lot of tackles last week, and he's in the backfield against Poland. So I think the outside run is probably going to be key, kind of loosen that up a little bit. Then we can start coming back inside. They don't have a defensive lineman that just scares you.
No.
That you say, whoa, how are we going to block that
like
guy?
Xander Zeiter.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that
Xander Zeiter
guy's been
is
scary.
scaring people.
Yeah. I mean, the linebacker, I think, is the best player, 55.
For sure.
And they have, Dominguez, 34. He is an outside linebacker, and they got Toy kind of coming down in the box. So not a bad defense, and they've stopped the run on opposing teams very effectively.
They have.
But, man, you're going to get 8, 9, 10 in the box, and you miss. We could see some potential big runs from Liberty Center.
The other linebacker, Dylan Smesko, 5'10", 185-pound senior. Luke Starkey, 6'1", 225, senior. I mean, again, we're talking about seniors all over them. I don't know that you can really put a value on seniors. I just know when I was a senior and you were, I just ruled it. I ran everything. I ran everything. I mean, maybe I didn't, but in my head I did.
Know. The junior senior year flip mentally,
Yeah.
it's just crazy what happens. I mean, you are the dominant force. You are the elder statesman at that point.
For sure.
You've seen these kids. You're on an equal playing field, and it's a switch from your junior to senior year. So yeah, they've got a lot of kids that have been there. They've been through these wars. They've been in these playoff runs and a heavy senior laden team, and they've been in some wars with Poland. I mean, they had to come back last week. They were down, I think, 14-0 earlier in the season. Came back and won 38-30. So they've been in some wars. I think you could say their strength schedule is probably a little bit better than Liberty Center during the regular season. So they are battle tested.
Let's talk a little bit about we've covered them in offense and them in defense. I did want to talk about what I'm so impressed with Matt Bryan and that defensive staff. How the first drive, Milan Edison, we're like, ooh, like there it is. There was and such an effective ball handling, job done by the quarterback, and we thought that could be that got erased, Brian. I mean, that was the only 3 plays that was it. Ball game. Like Matt put a lid on it.
Yeah.
I'm sure him and Casey on the phones going, all right, let's get disciplined. Snipers locked down. Jackson Bartels.
Yeah.
Blake Garber was the player of the game last week. What a phenomenal sniper
both
game.
of them played outstanding. I mean, you play the film back. Them guys were all over the place and creating negative plays on that quarterback and those.
A lot of
sweeps.
negative plays.
Man, oh man.
Our defensive line too. I mean, Ryan Miller's a big part of that too. Ryan's a high IQ coach. I mean, these guys just don't let it happen. I mean, you see teams like I don't even know how they would scheme against us if they were to kind of scout ourselves. How do you beat Liberty Center? But I wouldn't want my staff, scouting Liberty Center because I think they could figure something out. Right. Matt Bryan figures it out.
Yep.
Unemotional, no panic, and like I said, 80 yards in that first drive, and then all they could muster was about another 70, and that was done. And our defensive line, I mean, I couldn't believe the push we got.
Yeah.
And I think we can see potentially very similar results this week. Couple other takeaways for Canfield South Range. They're allowing 111 yards per game on the ground. That's not a lot, but that's a fair amount of yards.
Yeah.
And Liberty Center, I think, is looking at that number going that we can get at that. We can pick at that number a little bit.
Yep.
This isn't a dominant, run defense. They've allowed 106 yards passing per game. So I don't think this defense scares you. I think it's good.
Yes.
Schematically sound. They have players all over the place. They're about 6'1", 200 pounds up front. Yep. But I think at the end of the day, this isn't something our guys are going, oh, gosh. They got Reggie White up there. Or they got guys that we can't move. I think we can move people up front.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to go back to last year when I watched the Perry film leading up, there were some times where I'm like, ew, there's some players and I'm thinking, what are we going to do against these guys?
Matchups are hard.
And I don't think I see that either. I agree, but this is a very solid football team.
It is well coached.
But they don't have a game breaker that scares you over the top. And that's been, I think, if you point to one thing in Liberty Center, obviously the Oak Harbor kid got loose on us a couple of times. That is something that would potentially scare you. I don't think they have that guy. They got a very solid receiver, but I could see them lining up and just trying to grind this thing out, and
first downs,
move
clock.
the chains, clock, and let's shorten this game up.
Make this a 14-12
I really
business.
I could see it.
One turnover could do the whole thing.
And they have their special teams are good.
They are.
They got a good kicker. Their kickoff team is very good. They fly down. Punt team on their punt return team, they try to block everything.
Right.
I mean, on film they have a couple punt blocks and a few that they're really close on. So, you know, we're going to have to be aware of that on special teams and the punt team as well this week. But I part of me thinks this thing's going to be a 3-point game, and then the other part thinks maybe not.
Maybe Mile and Essen 2.0 maybe, and I would be shocked to see it.
Yes.
Because that was a well-coached team as well. Liberty's defense giving up about 169 yards a game, only 75 rushing per game. So, I mean, and we're not even playing starters, man. I mean, that's how many games the guys are shoulder pads off, drinking lemonade in the third quarter. And, I mean, that's not great to have a schedule that just didn't pan for you. But that's all behind us now. And Spike even said it. Does it really matter anymore?
No,
like, we're here now, and you keep talking about that, Barrett, strength of schedule. Does that even matter? He has a point. Spike has a point. It doesn't matter anymore because we're doing it to teams now that had strength of schedules on those kind of things. I would just others say I wanted to talk about Matt Bryan and the defensive staff. I wanted to talk about our defense. It's great to be healthy. Yeah. I mean, you know, Ethan Gray and Baxter Barrett, and we got, you know, have been out there long-termers, so those guys have been erased a little bit. But in terms of, like, Jackson Lonizak jumps into that game after being out a month plus.
Yeah.
Instant special teams tackle, and then 2 tackles on defense, gives us depth, you know, and gives our guys breathers like Waylon Rentz, who's just a complete rock star and an all-time great. How good is it to get Jackson Lonizak back and be kind of healthy? We were broken down this time last year.
Yeah.
Broken down.
Yeah, I mean, you name it. The Cruz brothers were
banged up.
Waylon was out.
Gone.
Cam Colley was limping
banged
and finished.
up.
We had some linemen that were
for sure.
Tyler Lay was in bad shape. I mean, we were really banged up. But you're right. When this team is healthy and you got the full menu, it's a pretty special team and the depth is there. And you're right. I love what they're doing with, you know, Tyler Lay is starting guard. They don't have to play him on defense. He's not playing every. Max Walker starting guard. He doesn't have to play every snap on defense. Stephen Brogan, probably just as good of a guard.
Sure.
He doesn't have to play guard right now. Save him for defense. Hunter Spangler, same deal. Save him for defense. Bring him in some on offense, and same with Xander. So the way that they're chess piecing some of our key players, not overplaying them, saving them for probably their stronger position, I think has been really, really impressive and very important down the stretch here.
Just a couple quick trivia questions before we get to the final part of our show. One, not trivia, but questions. How good has Tyler Lay been?
Oh, yeah. He is absolutely relentless. You watch an end zone.
I mean,
I love watching the end zone film on that guy because it is just – he never stops. He just gets on you. He's like a leech, and he's on you, and he's going to keep driving either until you fall down or you try to hip check him, and then he's still going to get on top of you and bury you.
I want everybody to stop watching the touchdown runs and the throws and all the – and I want to zone in on number 51 and tell me that's not great football to watch.
Is. Max Walker, too.
No, I was going to say, I want to go down the line.
Okay.
Now, the captain last week said, hey, you guys are talking about all these playmakers out there. How about number 71, Clayton Seal? Talking about just lunch pail, blue collar, every day. May not get the awards and accolades.
You don't see him, and you don't want to see him.
Playing, well, no, he's just like Tyler. I mean, just wants to get into a dark alley with somebody.
Yeah.
And he's been kind of banged up, and he's played through all those injuries, and he's loved it, and he's got this great personality, and he's played great.
Yep.
And Clayton Seal's been great. And then Max Walker, who his special teams, I don't know. I just can't stop talking about his punting. Last week puts a ball at the 3. I mean, this isn't the 47th time that kid has been incredible on special teams. And I know that Spike will say Ian Rosebrook, he as well, but Max Walker, wow. Just wow. Those guards and centers, I don't know, man. It's been a good year. It's been a good year there.
It is quite the combo.
Been a good year.
Yeah, Clayton Seal is – sometimes you're not going to recognize a center. You're just not. Like people that are
The only guy I
watching,
recognize him is Mark Bly. He's in the back. He's in the back going, 71. Call his name, guys. I'm watching him. He's making blocks.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, he did. And some film on him too. And sometimes the center doesn't have to do a lot, right? You got a guy head up. You got to get just enough, or if it's coming on your right side, or just enough. And man, he has played a really, really good center job. And man, that's where every play starts, right? Snapping the football, and then it's got to start with you right up the middle. And he has been a rock.
I don't know if 4 or 5 power is our best play or 0-1 trap. I don't know because our centers and guards.
Max Walker, to lead that game off last week, that pulling block he had on Cy Finnan for Wayland's big, he just absolutely rocked him. And that's a defensive, probably an all-state defender.
100%.
So it's pretty impressive that lead.
So there's your one. We covered Max Walker on intent. How good is Kellen Weimer got to be getting snaps on both sides of the ball?
Yeah.
With all this depth, and he's playing defense, and how good? He's sophomore.
Yeah.
How good has he gotten from day one to today?
Man. Well, he was kind of an afterthought beginning of the season.
He was.
He's kind of an afterthought. Hunter kind of got banged up there early, and Kellen had to play more. But man, he has really been the foundation on that.
Well, you say I got Goose, who's a road grader,
yes.
and I got Spangler, and I got all these guys, and then all of a sudden I got a sophomore.
Right.
And the same thing like Kyler Kern, who just kind of crept up and made 3 position changes, and he's uber productive as a defense.
Yeah.
That defensive line last week was crazy good.
They were.
That was crazy good. And Kyler was a big part of all that too. Another guy doesn't get a lot of recognition because you got the defensive lineman of the year there, and Xander Zeider, and you got Hunter Spangler, and you got all these guys that are playing, and there's Kyler Kern just every snap doing his job, technically sound. Nick Miller said this guy's gone from 0 to 100 in about a month.
And he was in on a lot of plays last week. He was in on a lot of plays. But yeah, to finish off the offensive line, you got Goose and you got Weimer, and that is a nasty front 5 right now. And then you had Xander Zeider, Hammondtree, and Spangler on the tight ends, man. And that is, I don't know.
That's a lot of dudes.
I'm not an all-time great guy. I'm too young, right? I think you've seen way more football than me to even talk about stuff like that. But I think this offensive line is playing at a very, very high level.
If Jim Meeker was still with us, he'd put on an 8mm of this group and an 8mm of his group, and he'd go, I think I like this group because this 2024 group has been awesome. All right, let's wrap this thing up. What does Liberty Center got to do in this football game against a really crafty, well-coached Canfield South Range defense? The game plan is the same, but there are differences to each team. This is a really maybe the best coach unit we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to talk about Ironton and all that yet. I'm just talking about the guys we've played and the guys in front of us. What is Liberty offense? You want to see them this week? What do they got to do?
Yeah, I think just continue to limit the turnovers.
Yeah.
And just play sound football. I think people are going to struggle to stop us if we don't hurt ourselves with penalties and turnovers. So eliminate your turnovers, penalties. I think that's the key. Yeah, 1 penalty last week. Yeah. Mark said that was.
Yeah, everybody talked about
it, man. No turnovers, no penalties.
Perfect. And I don't. You caught the penalty, Mark. I mean, I don't even know that I caught it. Delay a game.
Yeah.
Like, there was no penalties. My father-in-law went to lunch today at Spangler. He's like, "Do we have any penalties last week?" Because that's been a bugaboo. There's the 15-yarders, the 8, 9, 10 penalties, stop and drives, 3rd and 15. None of that. None of that.
2 years ago, we had 8 penalties for 100 and over 100 yards in this game in South Range.
That did not contribute much to
right.
it. What does LCF to do defensively to stop South Range?
Yeah, I think it's quarterback. We have to limit him, just like the last 2 weeks. If he wants to run it, we got to hit him, and we got to hit him again. I think he is the potential game breaker in this game, and he's really him and number 11. The receiver, I think, are the only 2 that I really see potentially giving us problems. So being sound in our corner play, number 11 on the outside, and then limiting the quarterback.
We've had such good cornerback play. My biggest concern defensively, and I shouldn't be concerned at all because Cammie and Grady and Garber. I mean, they've been so good.
Mm-hmm.
Even the guys off the bench, Sonnenberg and Martels, these guys have all just been so good in the back end. But I just can't. I won't be able to live with myself if we get beat once or twice down the field.
Yeah.
I think Oak Harbor was right there. I think if I'm watching film going, this box group Liberty's bringing, this whole defensive front seven is just so nasty and so difficult to move, and they're active. Xander Zeider isn't just a block a guy out. He's beating guys and getting tackles
he's
for loss.
Lock and throw.
So that's hard. But to go out and get somebody hook, kind of hook, line, and sinker, and get them biting on something and getting a big play, I worry about that because I think this quarterback and their receivers aren't. They can do it though.
Yeah,
you've seen it in these games. Like we got to stay disciplined. Grady's got to keep doing what he's doing. He's been so good all year. I think I heard a fan say these two corners have just changed. They've just erased guys. They've deleted receivers. They really have.
Yep.
But the Oak Harbor kid did some stuff.
He got loose.
A couple times, drop balls, touchdown balls.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like sound in the back half, that 6 or 7 shots they take. Last week, we shut those down.
Yep.
They took a couple shots. We knew they were going to have to. Nothing. So I think the back end is a big part of it. Brian, this is a big week. I mean, this is a chance to get into another state championship game. This is crazy. What at the end of the day, when you're watching these games and you've been around, what do you think about this team? What's this team look like to you today at 14-0? And
well, it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Oh yeah,
each and every week. You know, they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat bad. They beat them bad, and the teams that are supposed to stay close, they're not normally staying close, other than Oak Harbor, maybe Patrick Henry. But it's just the dominance.
Yeah.
It's the violence. It's the hitting, and just the attentiveness to detail that you see each and every week. And obviously, they're taking coaching very well, and it's just been a really, really fun team to watch. But man, oh man, you gotta outscore us. You gotta go get some points early in order to beat Liberty Center right now. In my opinion, I think you gotta get some guys on the outside to go and get one, because I don't think you're gonna stop our run to just stop. It's not going to happen.
Canfield South Range, 14-0, number 1, tied with Ironton. And wouldn't they love to play Ironton in the state final? Because Ironton turned them in. I mean, they turned Ironton inside out a couple years ago, and I think Ironton looking at this one going, maybe praying for a Canfield win, because I think they like to return the favor, but they got a big task in Liberty Center. Liberty 14-0. Number 3 in the AP. This is, we say it every week, man, is like two heavyweights, but we look a lot alike.
Yes.
Both teams well coached, lots of culture, lots of community. It's going to be a lot of fun at Parma High School Friday night. Couple of 14-0 juggernauts.